Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, we're going to talk about extraterrestrials and their contacts with people who claim they are contactees. And none of these cases add up very well, and they have nothing to show for them. There's absolutely nothing these people have done that is connected with some sort of reason to know someone. So the whole idea is that if you're getting messages from somebody that says they're extraterrestrials and can't really produce any information of value to you other than really low-level philosophical mumbo-jumbo, which is basically what these ETs, these extraterrestrial contact people, are famous for. There doesn't seem to be anything else past that. And we're going to go into the last famous cases of the last 50 years. People claim all sorts of contact and have absolutely nothing to show for it. Now, there may be people who are keeping it to themselves, who are afraid to go public, whatever it may be. But, we can't live with ifs, ands, and buts. Maybe there are leprechauns living in a can of Coke. I can't speculate on those things. People claim all sorts of things. There's all sorts of activities in the skies that people have been able to a photograph, which proves absolutely nothing. We do have very advanced technologies that act like UFOs, and it's a good cover for the military and governments to say, oh, well, it's not ours. It's, we don't have to explain the technology. It's extraterrestrial, which, of course, we don't believe in. So this is the kind of stuff that we run into all the time, and it is a good cover. Now, we are well aware of that, and has been proven by thousands of people, that if the U.S. military has anti-gravity technologies that apparently they reversed engineered from either a crash ship or a ship that was actually dug up, which is kind of interesting as well, found in somewhere, and it was dug up still intact, has been claimed by some people out there. So if we have anti-gravity, what else do we have? The head of Lockheed Skunk Works, who retired about 20 years ago, at that time 20 years ago, stated that we have interplanetary travel. That's not a problem. Meaning, well, at least with our galaxy, that we can jump around pretty easily. The other thing is we just don't know what we have and not have. It's a good way for the government to claim that everything they want to hide is based in that fantasy extraterrestrial. We don't know. Hey, Charlie, what is it? Well, we don't know. Well, this is what the government has always done, because for some reason they're only interested in our dollars and not interested in telling us what's going on. But the world is very complicated. The people in it are just scum, people who are cowards, who are bought off for nickels, and who work against the good people while they're slaves to so many others. So this is the way the world works. That's what you need to know first. But let's go through all these people who've claimed to have extraterrestrial contact and what exactly have they gotten from it. So we go through all this, and there's still lots of people being abducted and everything else, implants, etc. This still seems to be a phenomenon that's going out there, something I've worked with for years, not recently. But the whole idea is there's something going on there. Now, I believe that a percentage of these are extraterrestrial in nature. I think other ones are copies by the government to abduct people and use them under the guise of, yeah, we're the boogie aliens. So again, life is extremely complicated. It's not easy to just say one thing over the other. So what are we going to do with that in terms of how do we judge things? Well, we have to judge things in the fact of what has been made public. So if somebody has contact and doing something wonderful and hasn't happened and they're not talking about it, well, I can certainly understand that, but there's no way that we can speculate of what's going on out there. The second thing is the fact that somebody or something is an extraterrestrial and that somehow makes them good, powerful, and wonderful? I don't think so. Advanced technologies, and in general, societies who had more advanced technologies tend to be much more psychotic, sociopathic. And every weapon, everything that's been designed for either self-protection or for whatever reason, ultimately is used on the people who paid to have that weaponry researched. So all weapons that have been designed have been used on the populace of the countries that design them. So what do we do about all this stuff? But there is a clear record in the last 50 years of people contacted by extraterrestrials, which have nothing basis. How do they work? How do they do it? Well, one of the ways that technology and other things are given to people commonly is generally through representatives from extraterrestrials. Common people that all of a sudden have something and are trying to get it out to the public, usually in a very poor way. And somehow you get contacted, somehow you connect with them, as what happened with me with anti-abduction technology of the Greys. The bottom line is that all contactees have not been given good information, and certainly good information directly. They've never given any technology. They're given absolutely nothing. Even with the goofball who runs around with a ray gun now, Billy Meiers, that looks like something right out of Star Wars, but won't operate it. So, and of course, this guy has zero credibility. And the bottom line is every single person who's been contacted by extraterrestrials has a really, real bad credibility problem, particularly when it comes to extraterrestrials. Now, as we go back, there's been many of them. Everybody from Van Tassel, George Van Tassel with the Integratron, to Adamski. Another guy claims he was contacted. And what's the one thing that we can tell with all the people who have been contacted is that every single one of them have died young and have certainly not shown that they were being helped medically or even philosophically by extraterrestrials. They have nothing new to say. What they did preach is panic, survivalism, and a lot of nonsense. And a lot of them have been impressed by the fact that they're talking to extraterrestrials, which are just basically beings from kind of a far-off country or state. Yeah, that state of extraterrestrial. They have somehow think that these entities, these beings, are somehow better than humans, which certainly doesn't seem to work out that way. Nor do the people understand the very complicated factor of being involved with the horrible, evil, diseased Earth beings. And what benefit would you get from that? Well, the only benefit you could get is pretty much going what they're doing, abducting people, doing experiments on them, maybe playing with them. There's a lot of bizarre sex going on, breeding children. I mean, this is all stuff that you would do as a scientist without much of a thinking of it. And certainly it's very hard to have any respect for humans in any way. What has humans ever done in the creation of this planet? Absolutely nothing. So let's make that completely clear. 10,000 years ago, somebody built a pyramid. I don't know if we can say that's great or not. It's certainly a giant structure that didn't really help the society, didn't heal them, didn't move them ahead, didn't protect them. It certainly is interesting. It basically seems to be mostly involved with the death cult. And if it had a practical purpose, well, great for that, but certainly it's something that was shrouded in mystery. So I wouldn't consider that something great, nor would the societies that built these and their predecessors and their post-assessors, the societies that came out after them, actually went down further. So there really was nothing done. The warlike reality of this planet, ultimately, it doesn't matter what tech you build, you're going to be attacked by others, and this is the history of the planet. All you got to do is look at history, and we're not talking about in the last 100 years. Go back thousands of years, and it's been nothing but war. And you don't get anywhere unless you're going to conquer other societies, because if you don't conquer them, they're going to conquer you. And this has not really changed much in the recent years. But what they've done in recent times is now it's all hooked up to money, so it's more fun to kill people because you make a lot of profits from it. But we go back to Van Tassel and other people. He's another guy that died young who was supposedly building a machine that he was told how to do from certain extraterrestrials. But of course, he died young. He really achieved not much of anything. He built a structure over there, apparently became fairly wealthy from up in Giant Rock, having meetings and other things, which eventually became a problem because hoodlums took over in the meetings. And of course, your local police ran like the scared cowards they are. So the whole idea is that that became a problem. But Van Tassel didn't live very long as well. His immortality machine, a fascinating structure, didn't work and may never have ever worked. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Certainly fascinating, but these people don't get any support. He did fairly well, though, and really was able to do nothing with it. By running giant meetings up there, running a little restaurant, doing other things, he made a fortune with his meetings. And why not? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But the extraterrestrials that he claimed to contact with Astar Command are the biggest monkey-headed freaks. I never met an Astar Command person who wasn't complete scumbucket. They're all mental cases. And I don't believe that he really had much of a contact. Again, what did he get left to him from the space contacts? What did he achieve? Well, he didn't achieve anything. There was nothing left to him. He had nothing to show but a semi-completed place. And he had lots of money. I don't know where all that money went to. But he was unable to finish his Integratron properly. It's just a structure there that is fascinating, mostly ignored. And certainly nothing came of it. And there wasn't much written about it or anything else. Again, a fascinating person, interesting information, which I believe is nothing more than kind of channeling information or getting information kind of from the cosmos. So, and again, we've got a new tech here. This is an interesting new energy plate for clearing stuff and using waters and liquids to bring it up to higher levels. Quite interesting new tech. This is out from Switzerland. I'll be testing this. And here's your good old 8 hertz wristwatches that everybody should own. Grab them when you can, people. The Tesla watches are very limited supply. They're usually $800. Now you can get them at low prices while you can. Everybody should be wearing something like this as general protection. There's nothing better. This is the miracle frequency, so it's been told to us by other people that everyone goes into before actually doing contact, whether it's talking to Joe Alien or doing healing or whatever else, psychic power, remote viewing. Everybody goes into 8 hertz. So we have to understand what these particular realities are. So as we move on through this understanding, we have to go back to, as I said, Van Tassel, Adamski. These are all people that claimed contact but really couldn't show anything for it and died fairly young with it. So, and they didn't really able to achieve or prove anything. They didn't build anything. They didn't have any healing. They didn't have any free energy machines. I mean, none of the things we expect or even concepts for it. Now, as this is trying to find, working with humans is a real serious problem because you're getting involved with very dangerous areas. And if you think you can explain technology to a person, imagine if you got your norm. We all have cell phones, right? Imagine if you brought this cell phone, and let's not go back too far. Let's bring the cell phone back, and we can show it to even people like Nikola Tesla. Now, he could figure it out. It would be very difficult to reproduce that. Integrated circuits and other things weren't around them. The manufacturing processes, making these actual processing chips. Well, Tesla couldn't have done that. Those facilities weren't even open. And if he was going to build a plan and go from there, probably take him 20 to 30 years to reproduce that. Do you actually think, and if you bring it to anybody else, let's say the 1890s, when they're still fighting American Indians, the whole idea is, do you really think that we are going to be able to figure that out? Do you think that extraterrestrials can give you and hand you technology? Well, from what I've seen, they give you ballpark stuff. Kind of works like this. This is a good idea. But you can't reproduce what they do. The metals they use, the technologies they use are totally foreign to us right now. We're using really crap technologies, old thinking, the electromagnetic spectrum. These are all kindergarten stuff. I would say even preschool. So to kind of transfer that to you would be very difficult. Giving you an extraterrestrial product, well, I guess they could do that, but this could be easily grabbed and proven their existence, which they don't want to do as well. So all of these things could be a problem, and you may not be able to use it anyway, because it probably works on consciousness, which you have a very low consciousness. All humans do. So let's go through a lot of people when we get down to the fact of what they are and what they're doing when we go back and look at UFO stuff. Now, there's been lots of books written on different people doing different things. One of the ones that was a relatively famous, done by Jeffrey Mishlove, a guy who's got a background in this, as far as I'm concerned, personally, I think he's a very poor researcher, and I don't think he really gets it in general. Another old man that's done not too much. So the whole idea is, but he wrote a book called the PK man. The PK man was a guy who was very active in the. It's amazing he got away with what he did. It certainly wouldn't happen today. Most likely he would have been killed or sued or whatever. But the PK man, of course, was able to apparently move storms, make it rain, etc. And he claimed he did that from his extraterrestrial buddies, which were basically not your typical grays. They were your praying mantis type extraterrestrials, which people have talked about. I think this kind of stuff is a little bit ridiculous and may be a shape-shifting reality that the extraterrestrials did. Basically, praying mantises, which have a tiny brain, wouldn't be able to do what they have to, and having lots of these arms, or whatever you want to call them, is not a help, it's a hindrance. Any society or entity that's going to reach a certain level of empowerment and be able to do things has to be able to stand up, and it must have regular hands to grasp and make things. You can't make I don't care how intelligent you are as a praying mantis, you don't have the capacity or the hands to actually make stuff like spaceships. So this fantasy, I believe, if they are being seen and is real, as the PK man claimed, the reality is that this must be some sort of projection for them. Maybe these extraterrestrials are ugly as garbage, frightening to look at, so they project themselves as a giant bug, which again doesn't make sense either. I'm not sure praying mantises are very attractive. I find them fascinating myself, but and used to use them in my garden. But the bottom line is that they are not, they're very aggressive. They kill everything. Praying mantises eat everything. So they even have a consciousness that isn't exactly friendly. You put them in your garden because most of your bugs are bad ones, so you want them to, but they eat everything. And that's the nature of praying mantises. But they don't have the physicality to do that. So it seems to me that this is some sort of projection. And as I said, I don't understand why, if it is real. Because they're not. And again, the eye structure of praying mantises and everything else, you can't see correctly through their particular eyes and everything else. So it's a real problem that goes with that. And certainly, while they're fascinating species, they have a low morality, killing everything. So they're not killing a particular type. They'll kill anything to eat it. And of course, that's the reality of them. So I don't really get that and why that would be a projection. You have to wonder when you get into the bug realm what's going on there. If things are not, what do they call, biped, standing up, using hands, and then, you can be any shape, color, whatever you want. As long as you got feet and hands, you can do stuff, which is pretty much what most of the grays and other things. So you do need hands, but you don't necessarily need 5 fingers, but you do need hands to grip and so forth. And of course, even that has been changed as people evolve, as things become basically psychic-based. But you're going to still have to start off with being able to make something as a species. So the fact that he called them Tweeter and Weeder, whatever, something like that, that he would, and they made horrible noises apparently and everything else, high-pitched. This is all kind of a joke, and how would he understand that? So the PK man is a very interesting case because apparently per Mishlove, which I don't think is a very good researcher, as I've stated, I don't think personally, and he didn't fill in a lot. And of course, they always like not to include things in books. And of course, with the able to print everything now, he's never followed up on what is a very fascinating case, which apparently has huge amounts of information there, but is too lazy. And I'm sure he has lots of people to help him. He got lots of volunteers for his goofy little show to put out more information on this guy, which is a fascinating case for everybody to kind of come to a final conclusion. Didn't happen. But basically, what was this guy? So, there's a lot of interesting stuff that he was able to move storms. He was able to make it rain. I'm not sure that is amazing as people think it is. There's a lot of people who have been able to mess with the weather dramatically and undramatically. He threatened a lot of people that if they didn't pay him for his research and everything else, he would move giant storms into populated areas and kill people. He claimed that he also started out doing healing and that he had some religious story as well. His great technique was some little visualization, little positive statement he said he got from extraterrestrials. Seems to me very bogus. I don't see how that could possibly work. Mishlove thinks it works. He repeated this little affirmation and claimed to got himself a cheap little show on the networks that was government funded. What a manifestation, Mishlove. Not a real show, not anything of great value, but a goofy little PBS type show. So, not much of a manifestation in my book. And of course, you've been able to run that show into the ground for 50 years now, which interviewed alternative people, which wasn't all that difficult back then. I mean, there was lots of these things and still are to this day. But whatever, that's what he claims by using some goofy little affirmation, which is nothing more than centering your energies on something and trying to produce them. So this has happened millions, if not billions of times with anybody who works with basic manifesting technologies, and affirmations is one of them. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on all these people. Let's just shoot through this quickly. So the PK man was basically a person who was pretty much not very balanced, didn't do much, claimed to have been really intelligent. Now, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. He couldn't figure out real life. His way of making money was not empowering him to go to the slot machines and make $1 million win. No, he was going to blackmail governments and states to pay him money, like they're going to pay him that. I mean, he should have been put in prison for those kind of terrorist threats, which is what they'd be called today, and he would be. So the whole idea is pay me or this, we're going to run this storm into this. He couldn't figure out how to get slot machines or card games to pay off. He couldn't even win by manipulating sporting events to the fact that he could win with those. He couldn't figure out any of this stuff. And basically was unable to make any kind of decent money, so it's said. Now, he did have a wife. He wrote a couple of little books. He has children and everything else. All these people have not followed along, which is so typical of all this stuff. So they're not smart enough to carry on daddy's work, and they're not interested enough, and apparently they're too ignorant and less skilled to put out information as well to continue something on, even if it was fascinating. So I just don't quite understand that as well, but all of the family has disappeared. And of course, Mishlove knows what happened to them and so forth. But let's get to the meat of what happened with him. Not only was he unable to really produce anything directly other than making it rain, and that's interesting and certainly could be valuable in this day and age where we have water problems, but they never hire you for this stuff. So apparently Wilhelm Reich did the same thing with his Cloudbusters, but nobody really cared. As a matter of fact, the dumb bunkers said, well, yeah, he put up a machine, but, it was just one of those things that has to rain sometime, and it just happened to rain when he just happened to put his machine there. They happened at the same time, and it's just ridiculous. Obviously, it worked, but it's ignored because these people are the lowest you can think of, as most people are, even if they're so-called alternative people, which really aren't alternative. They're just government agents suppressing anybody that does anything of value. So, as is done with organizations of today. So, with their gym teacher leaders, high school gym teachers are running technological organizations that have been around because daddy gave it to them. But the whole idea is we have to understand all these things of what's going on. So what happened with him? Well, the problem is that he also was a horrible drunk. Now, we understand that moving your consciousness, letting down blockages by taking certain drugs at very small amounts certainly can help the process. He was a horrible alcoholic. He didn't have a long line of people he healed, at least that we know of. Instead of doing that and making money at that and getting a good reputation and getting a following, he couldn't figure that out either. So the whole idea is that he couldn't figure out how to make any money whatsoever and lived mostly off of donations from people he worked with or wherever he got his money. It's hard to say. And again, I'm not going to spend hours researching this dead monkey that didn't produce anything. So the bottom line is that he died young, again, from alcoholism. Cirrhosis of the liver killed him because of his horrible use of alcohol, which he used in his psychic things as well. Well, again, that's not extraterrestrial empowered. If you're using alcohol to assist your projections, which it does, like most drugs, as long as you don't take too much of it, it's not going to actually do much. So, and apparently he was psychically powerful as well. That makes all part of it, and I'm sure he was. That's probably how he was able to affect weather and everything else. People have been known to dissipate clouds and do things. Anybody, or I should say a lot of people are able to do this. He was not able to do anything because he was kind of stupid. He had no business background. He had no really common sense. If you can pass the test that you have a high IQ, it really means you have a low IQ. That IQ test is designed for stupid reality. And of course, he exceeded in stupid reality, apparently. Mensa and all those mental case idiots that are involved in these kind of things doesn't prove intelligence whatsoever. It's can you regurgitate common knowledge that society thinks has value, which means no cures, no free energy, corruption, all the things that society's really good at. Well, if you're a Mensa graduate, you're better at it. So the whole idea is that. So he was unable to do absolutely anything. So he worked on teams and other things to try and win, but he couldn't figure out how to do sports betting, didn't talk with people about it, didn't work with people about it. We just go on and on of all these kind of goofy things that are out there. So the bottom line is, as I said, he died from cirrhosis of the liver. There does seem to be, when he was doing stuff, more sightings of extraterrestrials. Now, I don't know how true that is or not. Again, we can't get much verification. The whole idea of people are looking for rain and clouds, well, they're going to be looking up and they're going to be searching the skies. And the fact that you see more UFOs at those times certainly is logical. Now, whether they were involved with it, whether they were the retarded, I'm assuming Homer Simpson's extraterrestrial relatives were involved in moving weather for this guy to terrorize people, which is pretty much of a moronic thing. They absolutely, if they even did that, they did a bad job of it. And anything else that went with that, if there was any, they did absolutely nothing direct because he has nothing to prove. None of his systems are worth a damn, etc. So as far as I'm concerned, the PK Man was a psychically strong person. Now, they claim that when there were events and even at his supposed death, that UFOs were seen over his house. So apparently they helped a lot with his liver problems. Did they kill him quicker? Probably. With the advanced ET medical treatments, well, we can't figure out how to take care of the liver. So the whole idea is that these are the kind of things you run into. So again, nothing makes any sense. Let's jump into, which is at similar times, the old Billy Meier case. Billy Meier is still alive, living in Swaziland. Yes, being the same goof he's always had, and he's been doing his little shtick for over 60 years. Now, I'm going to be showing his book with all the photographs in it, which, of course, were well produced in this particular book and sold by a person that connected to him. But, the bottom line is that people go there and don't expect frauds and everything else. We have to be very careful. Researching is an art. You got to know what you're doing. You have to be very careful. While you want to be respectful and you want to seek truth and give the person talking about outrageous things every possible benefit of the doubt, you have to make sure you come up with the right conclusion, which is the way I work. But very few people do that. So this is a real serious problem of knowing how to research, how to do it or not. And when you want to believe something, and I tend to go into this with it, but I'm not a person who wants to believe it just to fulfill, well, I researched this and I proved it's right now because I'm smart. I wouldn't have researched it unless it was real. Well, the bottom line is that's not the way to look at it. You want to make sure that extraordinary things, you give that person extraordinary leniency without rigging the results. This is a tricky and difficult way. If you go in there negative, well, you're going to find what you seek because you're negative. If you go in there wanting to find that this person is real, well, that's what you're going to find. You have to go as a person down the golden mean, the center path, to make sure this happens. So Billy Meiers never produced anything. The only thing that he has of any practical nature is he does little prophecies. Well, it's going to rain on the 12th. Well, the prophecy stuff that he did is very general that can be gotten out of any kind of book. I'm sure he's probably copying other people, probably using even some old books, ancient books from Notre Dame and restating these. Who knows what this guy does, but his predictions are underwhelming to say the least, and they're generally incorrect, plain and simple. Things have to be very specific. So giving stuff that extraterrestrials say they know what's going to happen in the future and being off by even a day or 4 hours, why can't you know? Why isn't at 4 p.m. on July 10th of this year this will happen? After all, the extraterrestrials know, right? So he's proved nothing. His pictures are all hokum. They're very difficult to prove. Some are pretty impressive, but this guy's been a long-time con man. He's a guy that has from day one been disreputable, been in and out of prison, has no particular background, and is a guy who's been known for his violence and everything else, being in supposedly in the Foreign Legion and as a bounty hunter, so to speak, before dog was around, going after suspects and everything else. So this is not some little weak philosophical guy. He prints books after books of philosophy that have no value whatsoever, regurgitating things that have been said 1,000 times since the beginning of time. Nothing of a practical nature. No healing, no free energy, no great meditation, absolutely nothing. Moving into his philosophical mumbo-jumbo of no value whatsoever. And what has he proved? Nothing. I recently saw a film with him produced by one of his buddies that support him, where they showed him with an actual ray gun, a particle beam handheld weapon that looks like something right out of Star Wars. Big, ugly, cumbersome. And of course, he showed the after results of it. He showed a tree where it kind of burned through it. A tree using this. But the bottom line is that he never showed it activated. He ran around, waving the little gun around, and that's all he ever did. Never triggered it, never showed it in action, never done. So again, this is one of his many models. Most of his stuff and his photographs have been discredited, and I don't believe any of them personally are real. People see things in that area. I'm not sure what that means. So yes, there's a lot of see things, etc. But the bottom line is that if you wanted to prove yourself, you would bring in somebody of great value and you would produce the aliens to them. Now, if you don't want to produce it in a press conference, I understand that, but produce it to somebody of value, whomever that may be. So, and let that person with credibility be able to check it out. Or a couple of people, or a small group, maybe 2, 3 people that are credible, that you can demonstrate what you're seeing to. And you don't necessarily even have to film it, but you've got lots of film. You want to show aliens, you want to show crafts. What's the problem? Let's see some action, baby. And when it comes down to it, it doesn't. Some of his crafts are just comical in nature, and we've seen how he's used models and other things. There's a long history of his stuff being very, very uncredible. It doesn't matter how many photographs he has using old cameras and everything that goes with it. So certainly he's a real good con artist, always has been. He's figured out the system and knows how to manipulate things. He's done a lot of research. He's well known at the local bookstore. He reads everything and that goes. So he's a good con artist, but he has produced nothing. He's also controlled by some of the worst people in the world, which all of his pictures, everything, his books are all in German, and he's controlled 100% by the Germans, who are controlling and feeding him and making sure they make money off of him. But really what he's put out there is a bunch of nothing. People went over there to see him, they talk with him, and like most people who are open and everything else, they are not smart enough to figure out what's going on, as so many scientists who were tricked by the unamazing Randy with basically $5 magic tricks. So he has no credibility whatsoever. And what is the bottom line for credibility? Well, let's go with that right now as I continue here. The bottom line for credibility is the fact that you have something of value, something that you can do something with. Whether this is a meditation technique, a healing technique, energy, anything that kind of leads in it, even a primitive little device or understanding to do something. Zero. So the PK man had offered nothing but kind of a very goofball system that is so unimpressive, it just puts me to sleep. Billy Meiers wants to act like the great prophet, just regurgitating old crap. I don't need to hear your little wisdom statements, your little 2-liners. I really could care less. I want something concrete. And of course, this is what a lot of UFO people have always been connected with. The aliens tell them, take care of the Earth, you're destroying your planet, be good, don't kill each other. Oh yeah, I never heard that before, Mr. Alien. I'm going to have to take that great wisdom and pass it on to Earth beings who will work on that immediately. Do unto others what you do want done to you. Don't kill people. Don't destroy the earth. This is profound. Well, we're going to end part 1 here, and we're going to pick up on part 2.